NHL preseason action in North America kicked off today with several games, plus we have Game 2 of the Global Series now wrapped up. We have a signing in Vancouver, and we're also looking at some trade talk involving the Flames and Avalanche, a potential trade. We also have the latest on a potential extension or the future of Jake Debrusk in Boston, and what's the latest on Shea and Pinto in Ottawa? Are they any closer to a signing, and what trade are the Sens going to make to free up the space? A lot more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a lot to cover today. Lots of preseason action starting today. Of course, prior to today, we did have the Global Series in Australia. That was now wrapped up. They had Game 2, which was late yesterday with the time zone changes. It was kind of hard to keep up with, but the Los Angeles Kings did win the second round of that Global Series 3-2 over Arizona, so they split the two games over there. Preseason action anyway, so it doesn't matter too much, but nice to see each team get a win. Looks like they put on a good show. Lots of fans in attendance, sold out building. Looks like it went over really well, so I would say that I wouldn't be surprised if I see the NHL planning to make another trip back there sometime in the future to continue promoting the game over there. So all in all, looks like it was very successful. As I mentioned, there's lots of other preseason action getting underway today in North America as well. There's still games going on, so I can't recap everything, but we did see Pittsburgh and Columbus play earlier with the Pens winning 3-2. Alex Nylander had a couple of goals. I know Coach Mike Sullivan made a comment that Nylander, if he keeps playing well, could be a candidate that replaces Jake Guentzel on that line in the top six while he's out injured. We know Guentzel's going to be out to start the season. He's probably going to miss 5 to 6 games, and that's if everything goes well. You never know. Sometimes with injuries, it could maybe be a little bit longer. Hard to say. But, somebody's going to get an opportunity that they wouldn't have otherwise. And Nylander's certainly trying to plant himself there. And so far, he had a good start to the preseason to do that. Buffalo fended off the Capitals with a 4-3 victory. We saw lots of young players getting on the scoreboard, including Peterka, Krebs, and Benson. So good showing there from the young Sabres. The Sens beat the Leafs 3-2 today. Combination of veteran and young players on both sides. Ottawa probably had an extra one or two veterans in their lineup. The Leafs were a little bit lighter. The Sens did have their normal first line intact of Giroux, Tkachuk, and Timmy Stützle. After that, was scattered, really, and it had a pretty young D-core and Anton Forsberg between the pipes, where the Leafs had William Nylander. Marner and Matthews were not in the lineup. They had Morgan Riley and a few other veterans as well. But overall, I think the Leafs played a good game, considering that they didn't have all their star power playing. Timmy Stützle scored a couple of goals. Jake Sanderson was a standout for the Sens again. Anton Forsberg is his first game back after suffering that freak double knee injury last year, where he missed, I think, how many games did he? I think he missed like 30 games or something crazy. Anyway, so it was a good effort. Good win by the Senators, but certainly more than anything, they're not so much focused right now on the scoreboard. It's more so on the development here and trying to figure out their roster and obviously the regular season. The Wild defeated the Avalanche 4-3. Some guys on PTOs got some goals, like Kiviranta and Jujhar Khaira, so that's good to see as well. And as I mentioned, lots of games going on as we speak. I know the Bruins and Rangers were playing, and the Bruins were up, I think it was 4-0. I believe. I know Jonathan Quick started. Gave up, I think, 3 goals on 14 shots. I think it was. It wasn't a good showing for him, and he was done for the night. Lots of other games going on too, which I'll probably talk about tomorrow. So just nice to see NHL action on TV that are available to watch. The preseason is officially well underway now. Now that teams are far enough into camp to be having these. We've seen some teams already starting to have roster cuts, which they started yesterday. We had a few more today, but really nothing substantial for the most part. Guys being cut right now are junior players that were recently drafted that knew going into this they really had no chance of making it. They're really just there to gather the experience that they can hopefully get from being on the ice with NHL players, maybe getting a preseason game and just getting the higher level coaching and getting some good advice to go back and things to work on as they go back to prepare for their junior season. Now, before today's preseason action, there was an injury scare with the Rangers. Mika Zibanejad left practice holding his arm. I think they said right now it's kind of a situation they're calling day to day because it wasn't really clear right away, what he's dealing with. But at the same time, that's not good. He's a huge part of that team, and any team that has playoff aspirations, cup aspirations, can't really afford to have injuries out of the get-go and have a slow start. As we've seen before, I said it many times, you can't win the cup in October and November, but you can lose your chance to battle for it if you don't have a good start. So you certainly don't want to be starting the year off with injuries if you can help it. So hopefully Zibanejad is not too badly injured and won't miss much time. We'll have to see for updates from the Rangers staff on that. There's a Sportsnet article speculating about a variety of things. One of the things it looked at was the future of Patrick Kane. He's one of the more intriguing UFAs that are still in the market, since he made it clear he didn't really want to sign anywhere until he was healthy and knew exactly what he was going to be able to kind of commit to. We know that Kane, just a few days ago, mentioned he's probably about a month away. So I would suspect that he's probably not going to be able to play for the first 2 to 3 weeks of the regular season. After that, he's probably going to be an option. So I would think sometime in the next few weeks, we'll see a Patrick Kane contract signing. It could come really any time. I'm not sure kind of how long he wants to wait. I think at this point, he's looking at teams. I mean, really, you're not going to all know what all teams are a couple weeks into the season if he wants to kind of get a better look at how teams are playing and whatnot. Preseason is not much of an indication either. But this article suggested Kane to the Canes, Carolina being a good landing spot. And to be honest, it does make a lot of sense. I mean, they're getting back Andrei Svechnikov this year, which they certainly missed him in the playoffs last year. We've seen Carolina be a team that's had some deep playoff runs, but not get over that hump. They, can get to the second round or sometimes, second and third round, but they've never played for the cup with this group. Even getting to the East Finals is a challenge, but they've been a consistent top regular season team and, can usually count on them getting at least to round 2 at the very least. So having another key veteran, high-scoring player on the team would be an absolutely huge addition. Like a lot of teams that Kane's probably going to talk to and have interest in. The salary cap is going to play a big role in what they can offer and what he'll be willing to accept, of course. We've heard other teams be interested as well. We've heard teams like the Sabres. I've heard a little bit about the Leafs. I don't know sure how serious that is. I don't know about him going back with the Rangers. That's hard to see right now. But Carolina does make some sense. But again, like I said, lots of teams are going to show interest. I can see them being one of those. They always seem to be a team that's in on everything. So would not be shocked. I do see the fit, but of course we don't know how everybody feels about it. So let me know down in the comments from a UFA standpoint, where do you see Patrick Kane ending up? He's certainly going to be a real intriguing player to watch this year. Now, a couple other players that we're waiting to see. Let's start with Shea Pinto, one of the top remaining unsigned to restricted free agents, of course, with the Ottawa Senators. We're also watching closely the situation in Anaheim with Trevor Zegras and Jamie Drysdale. Didn't really hear any more new information on that today. But on the Ottawa Pinto situation, we did see a clip of Darren Dreger. Dreger's had a lot of good info involving the agent that represents Pinto, Louis Gross. He also represents William Nylander. And if you think back to that long, drawn-out dispute, holdout, whatever you want to call it, with Nylander and the Leafs on his current contract that's about to expire, Dreger would seem to be one of the main guys that had all the inside info. So I have no doubt that he knows a lot and hears a lot on this situation as well. He said he gets the feeling from what he's hearing that Pinto and his camp are kind of digging in. They're not really coming down on their ass, which makes sense. We've heard that things are getting closer. I know Bruce Garriock from the Sens perspective has made lots of comments on the situation as well. He's heard things are getting closer, but a lot of it is that they don't want to sign him until they free up the money to do so. So I don't know that they're going to get super close where a deal's imminent until we see a trade and that money get freed up. Because right now, it doesn't even matter what they agree on if they won't complete the contract without having the space made available first. Then it's all kind of hypothetical. I mean, they can say, okay, hypothetically, we will agree to sign you to this if we can find the cap space. But if they can't find the cap space, it doesn't matter. So at the end of the day, a trade has to happen first. And that's what many people believe is going to be the order of operations here. We're not going to get a Pinto signing until we get a trade. Now, I've seen Brent Wallace, who, of course, well connected to the team as well, local podcaster, covers the team, knows lots of people, been around the team a long time. He said from what he's hearing is that Matthew Joseph is still indeed the target player, and that maybe adding a defenseman to the package is what they would prefer to do here, because they do have a lot more depth at D right now than they do have at forward. They're trying to get enough forwards signed to have 12 forwards on the roster and be cap compliant. That's challenging right now. So if they can get Pinto under contract, they get Sokolov signed just a few days ago, obviously that's going to help, and they need to get one of their other cheaper contracts to be on there as well. Maybe that Yuri Smechkol, who they signed out of Europe, who looked pretty good in preseason action today. I think he could be a good fourth line player for the Sens defensively. Awareness, good size, good skater, all that. So, ultimately, maybe it's Eric Brandstrom, maybe it's JBD, maybe it's Lassie Thompson, maybe it's newly drafted Thomas Hemera. Maybe one of those defensemen have to be added as an incentive instead of a first-round pick. Because there was also talk that instead of adding a first-round pick to Joseph, which is what we had heard and talked about yesterday, that there are teams that might be more willing to look at getting a second-rounder and a prospect. So they get two assets instead of one. The prospect might have to be a little bit more established, so maybe they trade, either Brandstrom or Thompson and a second rounder. That might be a decent incentive for a team to take the Joseph contract. That gives them the 2.95 off the books. If they trade a guy who's like Brandstrom, who's on the books already as well for $2 million, that gives them even more money, because it does sound like they want to sign Josh Bailey, who's in camp on a PTO. He's probably going to take league minimum or close to it, but still, they need the money to sign Pinto and add him as well. So it's complicated, but adding a defenseman and a second-round pick might be the preferred method here. So we'll see, but hopefully this situation can be resolved soon so Pinto can get into training camp. Also seen information on Jake Debrusk and the Bruins. There's word of Jake Debrusk, and the Bruins are both interested in looking at an extension, but it sounds like the Bruins are really only interested if they can get it done on their terms. Now, I think the Bruins want to take more of the wait-and-see approach, wait and see if he can duplicate or improve on what he built last year. He had a good season. Obviously, has one more year left in his deal. They'd like to see him take another step, take an even bigger role this year, and take his numbers up even higher. And if that's the case, then maybe they'll work out a longer-term contract. But I think they're a little reluctant, because they've had multiple times over his tenure with Boston where he's requested a trade, then pulled it back. And it's just been a rocky relationship. I mean, obviously, I think part of that had to do with he just didn't seem to get along well with Bruce Cassidy. That played a role. But obviously, at this point, Debrusk is probably looking for a bigger commitment than as of today they might be willing to make. I know a lot of people are wondering about the Bruins this year. How much of a step back are they going to take? Are they still going to be a playoff team? Where are they going to sit? That could play a role in a lot of things as well here. Obviously, if Boston takes a bigger step back than many think and they are out of the playoffs, maybe they would sell off a few players and kind of retool in the summer. I don't know, right? It's kind of hard to say. But Debrusk is, still in that prime years where you don't really want to, lose them if you don't have to, but you kind of want to make sure the contract is fair. And that's kind of the words from Don Sweeney, was that they want to get it done on their terms, and they want to revisit things probably a little bit later. So I think they want to kind of see him kind of reprove himself or duplicate last year at the very least before they get a deal done. It sounds like he would like an 8-year contract, and it's difficult to say right now if all sides can come to an agreement. There's interest, but whether or not they work it out, it's hard to say. Depending on how the year goes for Jake and how the year goes for Boston, it wouldn't be shocking to see his name surface in trade rumor mills. I think teams will inquire as long as he remains unsigned, but it's, like I said, there's interest to stay, but we'll see how it works out. And could we see a trade between Calgary and Colorado? These two teams seem to be connected here. There's been a lot of talk on social media about a trade that would make sense for both teams. And that trade would involve sending Samuel Girard, a top smooth skating defenseman of the Avalanche, to Calgary from Michael Backlund. And of course, we know Backlund's a player who's Future in Calgary is questionable. I know he, along with some of his teammates, had expressed interest that they either didn't want to stay or weren't sure if they wanted to stay. Right now, they're all kind of playing that neutral level, saying, well, maybe we'll stay. We'll see how it goes. They're open to it, but I don't know. Don't want to commit just yet. And, at this point, the Avalanche have been linked to him and have tried to trade for him in the past. So it wouldn't be shocking, again, if they wanted to do it again. They are needing the type of depth that he brings. To have him as a defensive type center who can produce offensively is exactly what they're looking for to add to this lineup before the playoffs. And with Jerard, as much as they don't really want to lose him, the fact that they really want to re-sign Devon Toews to a long-term contract extension, they're going to need to free up some money past this year to do it. Now, this year it's fine because he signed this year, obviously, for cheaper money. But the Toews contract, if it gets done, it won't kick in until next year. That's probably going to push out a guy like Jerard. Jerard's already been rumored for the past 1 to 2 years of maybe being a cap casualty for cost purposes when they've had to make other moves, and so far he stayed. I know they like the player. It's not about that. It's about the fact that they just need a different mix, and from a cap perspective, they need something else that they can do. So if they could add Backlund for the later into the season in the playoffs, and if they get the Toews contract done, they're going to lose Jerard anyway. They might be able to get themselves a good trade. And maybe I don't think it would be a one-for-one deal. There would be other pieces involved for sure. But they would be the cornerstone pieces between these two teams that would help Jerard, give another top skating defenseman to the Flames. And then, of course, Backlund could help the Avalanche. Now, especially if the Flames are not able to retain Noah Hanifin. Now, if they work out a deal to sign Hanifin, okay, that deal doesn't make sense anymore. But this deal's making the assumption that Backlund doesn't stay, Hanifin doesn't stay at the very least. Maybe Lindholm really wouldn't impact these guys as much. But otherwise, the trade, I think, does make a lot of sense. And, could be a deal we see around the trade deadline. I see lots of talk about these two teams on social media. I wanted to get everybody's opinion on this trade and see what's happening and what the thoughts are out there on it. So let me know your thoughts on this deal in the comments. All the other news we discussed today down in the comments we'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.